group of white girls who are sitting at their graduation engaged. And the question came up, well, why is there not the reality for black women? I know y'all not gonna like what I gotta say, but you know me, I'm gonna say it anyways. First and foremost, black women are above reproach. If it don't validate us or excuse our bad behavior, we don't want to hear it. Instead, we'll say, well, men do it too. Secondly, we'll find every excuse in the world to validate why we don't want to be married or why we don't want to be in a relationship. Well, they get cheated on. Well, they do this. Well, they do that. But then we have all these standards for men, and we're still actively seeking for men in the midst of our hurt while inadvertently telling them to go to therapy. We do not practice what we preach. Thirdly, the independent woman is a myth. Actually cared about being independent and it was something that made you happy, you would not have all these standards to negate your independence. Nobody wants to relinquish power. Find every excuse in the world to not be submissive and wonder why white women can get away with their bad behavior. We take everything bad from white women except for the fact using marriage to our own benefit. But you'll run to the child support office though. Argue equality against men, and the only time we actually want to be equal to men is when it comes to degenerate behavior, hypersexuality, abusing or abandoning children. Even when it comes to the gold digger conversation, what you don't see those other women do, even when they are just screwing men for money, is bashing men, inadvertently making men feel like they're not important. Also too, telling them that they don't need men. Psychologically, we have been taught to disassociate ourselves, and even in that Malcolm X quote where he says the black woman is the most disrespected, he also says to be near your man. Because who taught you to hate the very race that you're supposed to be with?
Thank you for sharing. Thank y'all. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, but thank you for sharing. Why are all these young black women on this app trying to give all this old ass, crusty, dusty, judgmental, bitter ass auntie advice to other black women? What's going on? What's happening? Who's the intended audience for something like that? Like, I know it's not me, but are we supposed to be motivated by this? Am I supposed to be like, oh my God, let me get my life together? Like, what are we?
I'm not gonna bash this girl because she raised a lot of good points. Now, there are a lot of things and factors that go into this and a lot of different sides. One of those points is white women really do be going to college to get a husband. They go to college with the intention of getting a man and being a housewife. They're taught that growing up. They are literally primed and groomed to do that. Us, black women, we go to school to learn. We go to school to get education. We go to school for that career and that big job that we want. That's what we go to school for. But I will say there is that sector of black women that do be getting engaged in school. And what do? A lot of the times they end up turning the guy down because why? They feel like they're gonna have better options once they get out of school and get their dream job, or they just want to focus on that career altogether. And until they have that career in hand, until they have that goal accomplished, they are not ready to settle down. They are not ready to have a man. They are not ready or seeking that type of relationship at all. And a lot of that comes back to the thinking of what she mentioned. We're above getting a man. We're above being with a man. We're above saying that we need a man. We can't even come out and say that we need a man. That's a problem, y'all. And for y'all to not notice that that is a problem scares me. Video yesterday. I was gonna talk about that one, but this girl got me. I'm gonna just add a few points to this story. So let me start off by saying we really need to retire this misogynistic mindset because I'm tired of hearing it. I really am. I'm so tired of hearing the word misogynistic, misogyny, like I'm over it. And to be honest, nothing she said was misogynistic at all. I feel like sometimes we just need to hear these things and it's hard to hear it, so we just automatically just point out, oh, it's misogynistic. Statistics are statistics for a reason. Just because we don't agree with them or just because they might be unfavorable does not make them any less true. And two things can be true. Definitely it's true that black men experience mass incarceration at a much higher rate than any other race of men. It is also very true that the black community and black people experience racial disparities and poverty at a much higher rate than any other community. What is simply just not true is that there aren't any black men available for marriage. That's just not true. About 58% of black men in this country are single and childless. 58%. And that number is only increasing. Employment status? Okay, of the 83% of men that take up the entire workforce in this country, at least 73% of them are black. Where we're having a problem is that these are just the men that black women call broke, not in their league, and all the other little crazy things that y'all be saying about black men. Have black families been disassembled and disenfranchised? Yes. Since slavery? No. The period after slavery, the industrial era, was the most successful time for Black families and Black community. That's when we were building businesses, we were building schools, we were literally building our community. I would say Black families really started seeing a fracture around feminism. That's really when we started just like breaking shit apart. Feminism is the cause of that, sweetie. So again, just because these statistics exist does not mean that they are wrong. If you feel ashamed because people bring up these statistics, good. Maybe you should feel ashamed. Do something different. Change the narrative. Live your life different so you can garner different results. Because right now, the way y'all be talking and defending these bad habits and bad behaviors, you're just gonna get the same outcome. So listen to me carefully when I say this. You are not a victim.
If you went to college, you would understand why this is. For going to primarily like Catholic schools all my life, a lot of these women go to college knowingly that they are going to come out with a ring. And it kind of sounds bad, but that's what they're bred to do. And I'm not saying every white woman, because there are a lot of white women who I've been classes with who actually want to utilize their degrees after school. But some of them who are raised to this mentality of, I have to get the ring before I graduate. And that's why they sit in the business buildings or the liberal arts buildings. They know where to go. They are told by their parents where to sit, what spaces to be in to find a husband. Black women are not raised the same way. We are told to get our degrees to utilize them, to go be successful, to go achieve a master's and a doctorate. It's like our lives and white women's lives are polar opposites in college. And if you sat in a college classroom, it's more women that look like us in those rooms. Because Black women are the highest educated group in the country. We're majoring in engineering, the sciences, political science, nursing, all these very extravagant majors. Because we weren't taught to go out and find a husband. We were taught to get our degrees. A lot of these women do not utilize their degrees after they graduate. They just become housewives. And again, not all of them, but some of them are raised like that. But you should have the least amount to say when you don't have a ring. But I pray you have a degree, because this was common sense. Like, common sense will tell you we have slim pickings in college. Many Black men to choose from in the first place. And it sucks to say, but it's our reality. Because unfortunately, Black men aren't out here seeking degrees as much as we are. So we already don't have that much of a pick unless we marry outside of our race. Simply.
And shed a little bit more light and offer a different perspective in terms of white women being married more than Black women in college. So to give you a little bit of my background, I just graduated from a 4-year PWI. It was a Nazarene university, and typically in Nazarene schools, the Ring by Spring culture pipeline is heavily celebrated and is seen as a positive thing that happens at these Nazarene or Christian schools all over the U.S. The term Ring by Spring has been around for years. I can't lie and say that I haven't seen successful Ring by Spring stories. However, the amount of people from my class that I came in with and the people that are there now that are getting engaged and married within 6 months is honestly insane. There was another creator on here who pointed out how a lot of Christian and white schools of that nature really do prioritize, and how white women go to school simply to find a husband. Oh, the men are going to school simply to find a wife too. The reason why Ring by Spring is so popular because it's also generational as well. My president of my school was, I believe, a product of Ring by Spring as well. But to break down what Ring by Spring is basically you go to school. It may be intentional, it may not be intentional, but basically you kind of use those, freshman orientation, whatever, to find someone that you like, and you basically get engaged to them by springtime. Now, this could be, your freshman year, it could be by your senior year, but this term is so popular. But it's crazy because a lot of people don't know about it. I was telling my cousin about it. She told me to make a video about this. And this term is so popularized to the point that there was actually a TV show that wanted to create a TV show based off of Ring by Spring. And I was going to be one of the persons trying to find a ring by spring. Now, obviously, it never worked out, but it also just kind of goes to show how ridiculous people see the Ring by Spring culture to be. Not to say that they came at us, like, trying to make us look like a fool or whatever, but if you really think about it, like, anybody's gonna find it to be crazy, almost like 90 Day Fiance. So I think it's just really interesting, and it's not for us as Black women to pin it on us and to take the blame to us. This is a culture. Like, that's the reason why they're getting engaged, and I bet that those women in that video went to a Christian school, if anything. So yeah, I mean, it's all culture at the end of the day.
Stitching her video are actually proving her right, that Black women really do believe that we are above reproach. One of the reasons that you don't see a lot of Black women with rings on their finger, for the Black women have drunk the Kool-Aid on Black love and spoon-fed it to their daughters. Okay, so they're not even open to dating other races of men who are much more marriage ready, who are much more marriage minded. So you got Black girls chasing Black men, and I promise you some of them white girls who were in that audience were engaged to Black men. And then at the HBCU level, the numbers are not even there. The men are not even there to have quite a few young ladies with rings on their finger. You know, and Black men generally are not trying to get married that young. And that's where I think some of the pushback is, because it's not just about our attitudes. It's not just about us being headstrong. No, there's layers to this. There's layers to this.
The reason it's not a reality for Black girls is because we still don't understand as a whole why they're in college in the first place. Let me tell you something about these elite colleges, these top tier colleges, Ivy League, like these schools that the private schools too, they are not there to get an education. And I don't know which school that this was that this young lady was talking about in this video. I don't know. But I do know this. These top schools, these elite schools, baby, they're there. They're networking. Those young men, they are networking. That's why they're there. Those young women, they're there looking for husbands. They're networking too. But we don't understand, because we go to school for very different reasons. The reason you are sending your Black sons and daughters to college and you're encouraging it, those are not the same reasons that a particular type of person is sending their sons and daughters. Because remember, I told you, white is a social class. It ain't got nothing to do with the color of your skin. It's a social class. We're talking about economic power. We're talking about people who are in positions to make decisions that affect the rest of us. That's what white is. It ain't got nothing to do with the color of your skin, because I told you in another video, Oprah's white. Look at all that stuff that kind of swirled around her, surrounding certain people. She's a white woman. I mean, it is what it is. She picked the president. That's not power. So, they're sending their children, encouraging their children to go for particular reasons. It's about networking. They're there networking. These young men and the young men, these people are interacting in college with senators. Think about that.
It's very simple. Two different upbringings. Black women were raised to be independent, do not depend on a man, and do what you got to do to take care of you, yourself, your family, or whoever. White women were raised to find you a man that's going to take care of the household, be a good father, and you be a good stay-at-home wife. Black women weren't around a lot of married people growing up, and if we were, it was grandmother who really don't even like granddad, and they just would stand together just to be together. White women literally grew up generation after generation of married high school sweethearts, so they don't know anything more. Black women weren't raised on love, we was raised on survival. Do what you got to do for yourself and not depend on a man. white women were raised that the man is going to take care of you. Just be a loving wife. Also, the grass is not green on the other side. Be happy within yourself. Don't try to compare yourself to others.
And internalized misogyny is just bleeding through her pores. Not even going to address that. I just find it interesting that people get on the internet and without providing any statistical or factual data, make these very blatant statements about things they know nothing about, just vibes. And instead of us focusing on the fact that Black women are amongst the most educated population in the United States, we are worried about whether or not they leave college engaged. Is that really the standard of success? And although divorce rates are on a 40-year low, we still have the third highest rate of divorce in the world. And I also find it interesting that at no point we are talking about whether or not any of these women are actually happy. That should be the standard of success. Are people happy with the decisions they've made versus the standard of success the society has told us we have to achieve in order to be successful? Make it make sense.
Student that spent half of their college career in a toxic relationship, I do not recommend that any woman goes to college with their primary goal being to find a husband. My parents warned me. They said, don't go to school being focused on relationships and men. I didn't listen to them, and I spent 2-3 years focused on this guy that did nothing but stunt my growth. The relationship was filled with love, but ultimately it did nothing but stunt my growth. I missed out on so many experiences. I wasn't growing academically. I wasn't growing as a woman. And if it's a crime that I did not come out of college with a ring on my finger, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, I would have ended up with the wrong man.
When some of you are offering advice to the Black community, hoping that it will better us, I don't understand why you all can't do that without simultaneously telling us that white is or should be the standard. Like, if we want to be better, let's just be better for us and us alone, not for this group of people, that group of people, or in hopes that, you know, by better, that means that we will acquire some level of whiteness. When we are having these open discussions in regards to the Black community and what we can do to improve, I don't understand how we get to the subject of white people at all, especially when we're on the subject of them to compare ourselves to them and basically go on and on and on about how we are inferior to them. A lot of you are constantly having these discussions on what we can do within the Black community to improve. I feel like the first step is to stop comparing us to people who ain't us. And that's just that.
My message to Black women: do not watch videos like this and let it make you feel like you're a less than. Don't watch videos like this and make it feel like there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Misogynoir exists. The reason why maybe Black women aren't getting married is because misogynoir. Because we live in a society that literally shits on Black women every chance it gets. You're not doing anything wrong. It's a societal issue, not a you issue. Just remember that when you see videos like this. Remember that just because someone comes online and has a platform and can bash Black women doesn't mean that they're right. They can be loud and wrong. You're valid. You don't need marriage to prove that you're valid. You are enough. I just wanted to let you know.
What she's saying is that the reason she was asking as to why white women are likely to be engaged by the time they graduate college. It's a couple things, right? One, if we know that Black women are the most enrolled in college and it's significantly disproportionate in comparison to Black men, how would you expect them to find a partner? Because logically, if we also know that it's a very common trope within the community for Black women to be very race loyal, 1 + 1 isn't equaling 2 in this situation, you see? And also, like, statistically, as well as even looking at anecdotal experience, most people who get married early or just get married in general, they're more than likely going to meet the person that they're going to marry by the time they graduate college. They meet the person they marry while they're in college. So for one, if Black women are race loyal, 2, we also know there is a disproportionate number of Black men in college, even including the HBCUs. How do you expect Black women to be engaged unless the adequate solution is to promote this notion of allowing Black women to date out, which I'm all for, by the way. I'll give you like a small example. When I was in college, I want to say from my freshman to my sophomore year, I had this job where I got to call alumni of the university and just talk to them about their story. And 9 times out of 10, when they said they were married for 15 or 20 years, They met their romantic partner in college. So while you're over here spewing nigga talking points, nigga rhetoric, the Kevin Samuel-like talking points, look up a study. Talk to actually college educated non-black women, since that's what you're so focused with. I know oftentimes we want to compare ourselves to these communities without having direct interactions with these people. And if you actually took the chance, you know, you'll learn how they ended up getting married. And more importantly, you'll learn how they end up getting divorced and how miserable they tend to be since they got married so young. For anyone who feels pressured by that, especially with this notion of having children, I would recommend you go on Reddit and go to look at some of those parenting pages and see just how honest and how vulnerable some people are about how miserable they are when it comes to having children or even being married. Yeah. I feel like we as a community need to do better about really talking directly to these non-black women that you aspire to be so much like, because you'll realize that it's the house.
No way I can address all the things in 3 minutes, but I want to address the underlying issue with this video. It is talking at black women as to why they're not experiencing engagement in marriage by the time they are finished with their undergraduate degree, all through a lens of white womanhood and whiteness. And while that should be obvious as to why that's insufficient, I want to talk a little bit about what are the ways that we actually experience womanhood as black women, and like how is that in conversation with healthy and happy enduring black marriages. So womanhood in the United States has had a couple of different iterations starting in the 19th century. True womanhood is one that was coined originally in 1976 as a way to describe the coded identity of women in the mid-1800s. It was a woman that understood motherhood as her highest calling, with all of her activities, even education, centering around the nurturing of her husband, care of her children, and maintenance of her household. For lots of reasons, too many to name, black women have always been set right outside all of the understandings of womanhood in the United States. Because of that exclusion, we have worked hard as a community to make really culturally relevant understandings of womanhood come into play. And that gives rise to what lots of people know as the strong black woman schema. Lots of people view it as negative. It's actually quite positive, but that's another video. So research shows that black parents engage in the practice of armoring their daughters, a socializing that includes both black respectability, which is the true womanhood, right? As well as a narrative of strength, which is specific to us, understood as independence, resilience, and the ability to endure hardship while also serving as selfless caretakers. Parents see the effort of armoring their daughters as a political strategy for self-protection, where they can develop the psychological resistance to defy sexism and racism in a world where their undervaluing, degradation, and invisibility take shape in particular ways because of their intersecting marginalized identities. So you cannot understand black women experiencing lower rates of marriage through a lens of white womanhood when we have all this additional factor, that strength piece, that armoring piece, that white women do not have. Now, some people would view the strong black women schema as negative, but reality is that we live in a culture and in a society that has necessitated its existence. And so we are doing the very best that we can with the tools that we have in order to survive and to thrive. And so I will make another video as to how the SBWS actually helps to contribute to enduring and healthy black marriages.
I would say go watch the full video, but at some point we got to stop supporting people who are speaking on things that they're not well versed in. If you're not a marriage counselor, a divorce counselor, or attorney, you probably shouldn't be speaking on why black women are not getting married. And as a black woman, I'm real disappointed in your reasoning on why black women aren't getting married. She said things like, you know, black women want to be independent. However, then they set boundaries that make them codependent. She said that black women will go to the child support office, but they won't go to the courthouse to get married. She said black women try to find any reason not to get married. She said that black women bash black men. She said all of these things, and none of those are the reason why black women aren't getting married. The truth is, black women are the one subgroup of all. So black women, white women, Asian men, Hispanic, etc., etc. Black women are the least likely to marry outside of their race. Black women want black love and they want black men, contrary to popular belief. But you know who's the most likely to marry outside of their race? Black men. And I'm not mad at interracial dating. I actually support it. However, when you're sitting here saying that black women aren't getting married, well, a big problem is there's not an option to pick from. See, other races of men, they tend to stay in their own race. And then our race tends to deviate from our race. So there's just not a substantial amount of options for black women to get married. She said black women want to be independent and they set boundaries so that they're codependent. And then she said that they'll go down to the child support office before they'll go down to the courthouse to get married. Well, first of all, if a black man will give you a child, but he won't marry you and then possibly drops the ball financially on raising those children, what are you supposed to do? Are you independent or are you not? Because an independent woman ain't going to nobody's courthouse to file for child support. But I'm not mad at my sisters who go and file for child support because it takes two people to raise a child. And if one person isn't intentionally and consistently providing, then do what you got to do. Black women have to be independent because we're not getting married. So we don't have a choice but to be independent until someone comes and helps us. And that's where we decide to be codependent. Yes, women, black women, all women want to live a soft, submissive life. But if we don't have the option to, then we got to do what we got to do to live. So that's why so many black women have standards that will make them codependent, someone to take care of them. White women don't have a problem asking a man to take care of them because a white man knows that that's his job and his duty to do. It's in the Bible. So I hope somebody picked you after that pick-me-ass video, but stop hating on your own sisters. Like, that's whack.
Okay, so first of all, we're just gonna skip the blatant internalized misogyny that this woman has and skip to the part where I tell you that I was homeschooled and I grew up in many different homeschool spaces. Some of them were Afrocentric and diverse and more liberal, but I also grew up in conservative Christian evangelical homeschool spaces, so I know what I'm talking about. There is the culture of these women usually going to college, going to school, and the goal is to find a future husband. There's nothing wrong with this. If that's what you want to do, like, do it. But I'm just saying, like, these women are not going to college to get a degree that they then use to, like, jumpstart their career. They're going to college to find a husband to one day be a housewife. And, like I said, that's nothing wrong. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But most black women do not go to school with the intention of one day being a housewife or a homeschool mom or a private school mom or soccer mom or whatever. A lot of black women go to school and their top priority is that education for that career. That's just what it is.